Happy Thursday, the day for thankfulness, as I am noticing. Arg! So I'm building a book, and I cut this piece of yellow star to go on the thing, and I just noticed that my son has been coloring it ink purple. So he will probably not be a yellow star now. Maybe we'll color him again. I swear, I don't know where he finds the time. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about energy wellness and on-purpose booby traps. And every time I say that, I think about Goonies, back in the booby traps. But I was getting ready for bed last night, and I was taking my blanket out of the dryer and putting on, the fresh blanket. I had already done my sheets. I love bedtime so much. And I've actually loved this since I was in my 20s. I can remember, hey, bud, can you turn it down a little? I can remember being 20 years old, and me and my then boyfriend, fiance, the JP, we would get into bed, and I would just be like, oh my God, this is my favorite time of day. Ah! And I felt that. And today, I still get that excited. And now, I like to feel the mattress and all the little tiny pillows. And I imagined last night I'm laying there, I'm like giant with all of these tiny pillows just supporting me, loving me. And the giant is happy. And I'm laying there under, my blanket was so warm though. And it was funny because last week it was fall here. So last week in the evening, if I'd have put on a warm blanket at any point, it'd have been great. Last night I put it on, and a minute later I'm like, what's happening? I was a little toasty. But it's just so enjoyable how many spaces in the house that I have now created these booby traps for well-being. And this is something that I talk about and work with my clients in the beginning. A lot of the things start in the bathroom, and mostly because these seemingly unimportant moments are so meaningful to your energy. So when you can take really good care of yourself when nobody's looking, the universe takes care of you in a really big way, whether everybody's looking or not. I feel like anytime I do something good for me, the universe just spills it back and magnifies it times 10. And it just continues and continues. So look, see my kitchen sink? I have a mirror over it. And I like to wash the dishes. And washing the dishes was one of the first things I had to stop procrastinating on. That was one of my first action-oriented suggestions from my teacher at the time. When I was first learning about energy wellness, it was stop procrastinating, which I didn't like to have any directions or rules. Stop procrastinating, stop using certain words like I try or I hope I can, and stop saying those things in my head. Those were my 3 rules, if you would, or the 3 action steps that I had to take in the beginning of this for myself. And I will say that it has repeatedly over and over again paid me back to follow those steps. I was, when I first found this work, I was in, I had 2 young daughters, and I had been doing home daycare for 4 or 5 years. I was in a pretty relationship. It felt like ships passing, like the most unsatisfying business transaction. And I'm not even talking shit. This is the kindest way I could say it. So everything in my life felt like I loved my kids. I loved my daycare kids, but I was so out of love with me and all the things that I was doing. I didn't feel like that during the day. So one of the things that I complained about constantly, and complaining, that was one of the other things, the complaining and the negative talk, zip. So the complaining, it was always, I hate to do the dishes. And I had 10 kids a day sometimes. So there was plenty of dishes, 3 meals a day, snacks, all that. Dishes, no dishwasher. So I would just be pissed. I'd put it off, and then my partner would come in and complain about my housekeeping, and I would trigger me, and it was just one big pitfall of negative energy for me when it came to the dishes. So I immediately started to stop procrastinating, and I didn't love it, but I did eventually get a really big gift. So immediately from this direction, I stopped procrastinating, and I would do the dishes 2 or 3 times a day, 3 or 4 times a day sometimes. I wasn't leaving piles in the sink, so that every time I got there, it was kind of cool that at least it was just like 10 minutes instead of 30 minutes, you know what I'm saying? So that was kind of cool. Then this one day, and I have told the story 100 times, it doesn't get less exciting and delicious and juicy for me every time I tell it. So this one magical day, not joking, not being sarcastic, I am living with, my then partner and my 2 daughters, and he comes home from work and takes the girls for a walk. My daycare kids were gone. Now he's taking the kids for a walk. This never happens. I never, ever, 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 ever got time in my house alone, unless it was at night and everybody was asleep. So now I have these magical 15 minutes of nothing to do. And I'm just like, wow. Like, I fucking live for this shit, But I first turn, because the teacher said, first thing we always do is take care of our stuff, never procrastinate. So here I go to turn around to look at those dishes, and they were already done. I had just given myself 15 minutes of nothing to do because I had stopped procrastinating the shit I hated to do. And now this magical window of a break that did not come. I'm telling you, when it didn't come, it did not come. I had that break, one time in my 10 years of marriage. Not talking shit, just the truth. Sometimes, one of the coolest things about sharing your stories with others, especially like my friends, that I have learned is that sometimes we get so comfortable in our situation, things are so normalized, that it isn't until we hear ourselves or watch ourselves say it to somebody else and they look back at you like, what? That you realize, wait, maybe that's not the best way to do this. Maybe this doesn't feel so great. Maybe I don't like this after all. I remember one time I was at the castle working with my BFF, and we were talking about when we were children. And, my family was very cynical and sarcastic. And I was comfortable with that energy growing up, And I didn't really know, or I will not stop saying this also. I really felt like I had the best childhood. Now, sure, I didn't realize some of the things weren't great, but it still felt like the best time to me. Again, it was like the Goonies forever. I got to play with my friends. I was out in the woods. We had animals. The parents basically just left us alone if we followed the rules and didn't interrupt, didn't get in trouble. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the 80s, and we had a big field behind the house, and there was a stream not far away, so life was great for me. So I remember feeling so happy all the time, as a kid, because I really, really, really enjoyed life. I had friends. So, but again, my family was very sarcastic, very cynical, and they would make fun of each other kind of a lot. So I remember one day at the castle, I'm there with my BFF Mary, and I'm saying to her, we were talking about something from that way, I don't remember what it was. Some way our families used to joke or talk or whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, well, when I was a kid, when someone would have an accident or a mistake or make a mess in the house, they would say that you had a Nancy because I was the accident of the family and I was continuously clumsy and always making messes. So they had renamed all mistakes to a Nancy. And in my head, that was funny until I'm 40 some years old saying it back and looking at my best friend hearing it, and she's like, that's fucked up. And I was like, that is kind of fucked up, actually. And it's because, the story always was that I was kind of an accident. And again, it wasn't one of those things that was presented as you are bad. It was just, this is the truth, So if it wasn't for the fact that I had heard myself say that to someone and watch that land in a way that she wasn't smiling, if I hadn't had that chance, I maybe wouldn't have noticed that I probably deserve to be treated a little bit better than that. I probably don't deserve to be the accident. I probably don't deserve to have the family accidents nicknamed after me. That's probably not nice. So I just love how sometimes sharing our stories gives us so much more than just talk. I love how when we first start this experience, it seems a little like walking in the dark. It took about 2 weeks for my procrastinating, or the stopping of my procrastinating, to finally pay me back in a way that I was like, oh, this is why I do it. It took me that long, and until that moment when he took the kids and left, that I realized I gave myself 15 minutes of nothing to do in the middle of the day. It was still light outside. I wasn't going to go anywhere, but it just felt really good to do nothing. And that was the beginning of me realizing that, wait, I am doing this to give to me, and as much as I have had to work on not complaining about, not procrastinating about these dishes, which I still don't love. It is something I have to do every day, but I just still don't love it. This has actually I can see right here why this has been beneficial. And it was slow in the beginning. It was slow. But again, when you have someone to kind of talk to you and prepare you and let you know, sometimes when I'm talking to my people, I really like when they say, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, please ramble. Because it's in those sort of word spills that I can hear anything still not sure. Or any random thoughts like, maybe you were nicknamed something that's not nice. And maybe you've been saying that to yourself. And maybe we should stop that. Matilda, don't drop that. But yeah, I just wanted to share those couple of ideas. And then back to my booby traps. So, in the beginning of all this, there were the rules of what to stop doing. And it was finally when I could see, hey, I've given myself time, that it's worth it to not procrastinate what I have to do. Because now I have this time and it's just mine, So there were other booby traps that I would set up. When I would go up the steps to use the bathroom, which again, a lot of the work that I start now with my clients is kind of in the bathroom. Like, when you're taking care of your bathroom duties, you can also drop in 5 minutes of self-care. And these moments really begin to layer in. Just like the mirror over the sink. So, and just like walking up the steps. So my walking up the steps one has changed a few times. It's one of my favorites. Almost everywhere I live, I have steps to get to the restroom. So every time I would go to the restroom, which I kind of do a lot because I like to drink. I like to drink 2 drinks at a time, like something with caffeine and water. I'm always super thirsty. So every time I go to the restroom, or the first one was, I would zip up my girdle. And that meant from my yoga class where I just sort of draw my navel in and engage my core, and then I would walk up the steps. And I did this in a way of toning my body. I had already given up on exercise. I had decided I was not going to do that. And this is in the beginning of me learning body manifesting. So one of the first booby traps for well-being was the steps. So every time I go to the bathroom, zip up the girdle. And for the 12 steps up the steps, I just hold my girdle in and just walk up the steps. And then in the bathroom. So in the bathroom, put the phone down. I know a lot of us sit there and while we're on the throne. But sit the phone down for a minute and take some time and just appreciate your body. what your body is doing in those moments is really smart, and it's really good. It's really good at taking care of itself. And we definitely take that moment for granted. And sure, it's probably not our favorite, most sexiest minute, whatevs. But our body is so smart. It has the potential of getting rid of all kinds of gunk that you don't need and still encounter every day. For me personally, one of my favorites is that I can eat whatever I want, and anything that isn't good for me, it just gets left away with that process. I never have to worry about burning a calorie or removing something bad. I will just go to the bathroom and the bathroom takes care of it. Like, that's the energy that me and my body have. And in the bathroom alone, like, there are times when I was working through anxiety and really high dysregulation. So I got to learn lots of ways to down-regulate that. And a lot of times it would be in the bathroom because, again, I had 2 young daughters and I was doing a busy daycare and there was no breaks. There was never breaks. So, I'd go in the bathroom and I'd get myself together. I learned tapping, the EFT, where we do tapping and say certain words. I don't know what's happening. I don't want to do a battle thing, but there are people like inviting and I don't want to. I don't know what, can you just let me know? Because the battle thing is weird. I have nothing to battle with right at this moment. I'm not going to do that. Sorry. But, yes. So I just wanted to share that. And so now I have like several booby traps around the house. Like every time I walk past the mirror, I smile at myself. And I remind myself that I'm in the right place at the right time. Every time I go in the bathroom, I remind myself of how smart and intelligent and perfect my body is all the time. And then, like, every time I wash the dishes, I get to thank the water. And the water that's in her body, the magic juice, as I call it, I need a refill. But every time I talk to water or come in contact with water, I'm talking to the water. So that the water here can talk to the water here. And it can remember the messages and echo it into those layers. And the more that my subconscious gets layered in with this, I actually love me. I think I'm okay. I'm not an accident after all, Like, I've got to go through all of those healing emotions from a disempowered, not even sometimes aware of it space, to softening and maybe getting a little mad, but softening again and sort of making understanding come for my sake, bringing forgiveness in for my sake, and just continuing opening and opening and opening. I came from living in survival mode all the time. And once I've made it to thriving, it is still weird now. I've only been doing this for a year and I'm still a little looky over my shoulder like, whoa, this shit's for real. But when we live in that space where it's always like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Your options available are never like, oh, yay, hooray, I can't wait. It's just like, please work. Oh God. You're desperate. You are dependent. You aren't free. You aren't making choices. You're holding your breath. Like, it is not the same mode. It's like driving an automatic or driving a standard vehicle. You're driving, but it's a different experience, I really love driving a stick, just saying. As old as you are, or as young as you are, as happy as you let yourself to believe you've been, or as unhappy as you've let yourself to believe you've been, I'm 46 years old. I have worked through so much just by soothing and readdressing my thinking energy, my thought energy. And my body just did it. Like, I was doing the boog shug for like a decade. And that's a whole other story about the ridiculousness of that. But for a decade. And I just stopped. And I still was hanging out, and I still do hang out in the bar with the people that I partook with. And I did nothing extreme. There were no drugs. Again, just like my weight loss. I've lost 100 pounds twice. The second time, I wasn't going to diet again. I was done, And I was shown that I can lose weight without doing any of that. I guess my exercising was zipping up my girdle when I went to go potty. So, okay, that was my exercise program. My diet was I trust myself. And I trust my body. So anything not good for me, I was like, goodbye. That was the diet and exercise, and I didn't believe it at all in the beginning, but I also was done dieting and exercising. So it was kind of like, let's see what happens here. I kind of think I was like at a duel sort of a situation where I'm like, you think I'm afraid? Blow me up to 600 pounds for all I care. That's how I felt. I was like donezo with it. It was exhausting. One of the only things that I actually still enjoyed at that point was food. And you know what? I quit. That's how I felt about it. I'm like, no. Would you like your fries, my guy? Yeah. Okay. So, and then we get into the relationships and the worthiness about who we spend our... Can you turn it down? Oh, you're listening to me. That's weird. It's weird because I'm echoing in my ears. Elias, it's creepy. Here, love.
Okay, good.
You're welcome.
Have food.
Yes. Cowabunga, that's fun. Cowabunga makes me think of Ninja Turtles. Cowabunga, dude. Here, Katniss. So that's that. I just kind of wanted to share some ideas and thoughts, and mostly the idea that, especially for people that work at home or stay at home, we have so much advantage of being able to control our atmosphere, whether, we don't have to do like construction to change things. There are easy ways to sort of adjust your space so that it like serves you and pours back into you. When you walk up the steps or when you walk in this room, I was thinking this morning, I was wondering like if I could count how many different like rituals or booby traps that I come into every day. And I know like a few right off the top of my head, but there are so many. Like I have set up little trigger points all around the house so that when I see certain things, I stop and do that. And that's just something that says that I'm good, says that I'm worthy, or shows me I'm strong, shows me I'm committed, and it's like all these different opportunities to just keep spilling in good energy just by walking through the house, just by taking care of my day-to-day routine. And instead, where those moments would be filled with complaining or ruminating on things that aren't good for my energy, it's just like, ooh, 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 ooh. Like I was walking in that room the other day and I was thinking about my mom and mom energy a lot yesterday. So I was like saying, I love you, Mom. And I walked in and there's like love written on the wall. And that made me smile. And then I looked to the left and home is on that wall. And that makes me smile because, the biggest part of getting to thriving was like stabilizing home for me and for my babies. So it's like that's so big for me. It's like, that's love, like, hooray, we did it. I thought myself well. That's what we like to say. Um, So anyway, even if there are times when it feels like your mind is like working against you or off and you can't catch it or get a hold of it, you can start setting up like traps for yourself at your home or in your car or at the office, on your path to work. Like every time I see this sign, I say this 3 times. You can make all these different rituals for your well-being and start reminding yourself that you are good and that you deserve to be loved and that you deserve to be happy and that you deserve it all over, like in your body, in your relationships, in your finances, in your home, in your connection to the universe, or whichever big spiritual word you like, and the idea that we have to give up one for another is not true. It's just not true. And I know for myself, having been able to like slowly soften each area and watch them all like uncurl in these different ways, I'm just a normal person. If I can do all of these things with healing my thinking mind, any of us can do all of these things by healing our thinking mind. I am a wonderful person. Duh, I love me. But I am a normal person. I would even say that some could say that I may even have, things that could make it harder. But nah, like, personally, I think my neurodivergent brain makes this a little easier for me. But maybe that's why it's easier for me to help make it make sense, because it's weird to make invisible tangible, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. And once we get it going so loud and so real in our body, in the layers of invisible energy and knowing that subconscious mind, then it gets to come out in real life. And then everybody else is like, dang, how'd you do that? And you'd be like, well, I started thinking happier thoughts. And then I decided that I would not think unhappy thoughts anymore. And every time I did, I would soothe myself and tell myself, it's okay, that's just a thought. Let that pass like the waves. And I reminded myself I'm a lot like the waves and the moon. There are times when I'm riding high, surfing USA. And then there's times when it's back down in the water and I'm swimming again. And whether I'm surfing or swimming, floating, or I've gone under and I'm wiped out, I'm still loved, I'm still whole, I'm always in the right place at the right time. All these great things are always coming to me because I'm always going towards all those great things. And I love that energy takes time. I like that I get to breathe in between the joy and just know more is coming, more is coming, more is coming. Yummy, 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 yummy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's a different mode from survival, but it's so great. I'm so glad I figured out how to get myself here through my thinking mind. And if we talk about action, yes, I stopped procrastinating washing the dishes. I created some booby traps for well-being. I didn't take drugs. Hey, whoa, what are we watching? I didn't join a program. I just turned into myself and started listening to myself and healing my thought energy, because I had started learning that our thought energy is responsible for our reality. And while that felt really confusing and like too hard to make it make sense, I slowed it down and I could finally figure out how to connect the dots. And I know that each and any one of us can do the same. So thanks for letting me share. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. Thank you for my hearts. I have 483 hearts. So 483, I love you backs. I'll see you soon.